Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living. Today my guest is Andrew Petro. He's the author of Remembering the Light. It's about his experience of when he was 18 years old of having a near-death experience. And we are going to speak about his life during that time and his life after that time and the present moment. Andrew, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you have a lecture this evening.
Yes.
You'll be speaking this evening here in Marin County.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for taking your time.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. So if I explained the process that I went through, it was a few days before our graduation, and our class had decided to have a picnic. So this was in Michigan. We went to a lake outside of Detroit for our class picnic. While we were there at the lake, it was a beautiful summer day. Sun was out, the water was perfect, and there was a floating platform about 50 to 100 yards out. And a lot of my friends swam out there early, and they were waving to me to come and meet with them and have fun on the platform. So it was very cold water. I jumped in and started swimming to the lake. About halfway there, I started feeling cramps. I had cramps in the lower part of my abdominal area, and my legs were cramping up. And all of a sudden, I couldn't kick anymore. And I started to sink. So now I'm sinking, and I'm flapping around, and all of a sudden water is coming in my mouth, down my nose, starting to fill my lungs. I'm trying to scream out, but I can't make any sound because I'm bobbing up and down in the water. And then finally I get one chance to look up, and I scan, and I can see the floating dock, and they're waving at me. They think we're playing a drowning game. Well, it's not a game for me. I'm really drowning. And that's the last time I saw anything. Then I started to fall deeper and deeper into the lake, and all of a sudden I felt some slimy things at my feet, and those were the weeds at the bottom of the lake. By this time it was so dark I couldn't see. And I sank into the bottom of the lake, filled with muck and mud, and I was in a sitting position when I hit bottom. So I used my hands to try to push myself up, and they got stuck. Now I'm there, stuck in the bottom of the lake, freezing cold water, because it's Michigan and it's June, just the beginning of the season, and I'm shaking from the frigid water so bad that I can't control anything. And all of a sudden I hear a voice in my head, and the voice says, "Andy, stop for just a minute. You need to rest." And I said back to the voice, I'm almost talking to myself now, "No, I can't rest. I need one more breath of air, just one breath of air. That's all I really want." And the voice says, "If you just stop for a minute, you can then continue on with the struggle." And so I said, "Okay, all right, I'll stop." And the minute I said, "Okay, I'll stop," I popped out of my body, and I went into a tunnel. As I entered the tunnel, I turned around to look back, and I could see my body stuck in the mud at the bottom of the lake. And I wondered, how could that be? Because I'm not there. I'm here in this tunnel. And I looked upward towards the tunnel, and I saw this bright light, and it was so light, it was like 1,000 suns all exploding at the same time. And I remember saying, that should be burning my retinas out. But it was so bright, I didn't even blink. I could just look at it, and it drew me in like a gentle magnet, pulling me down the tunnel. And as I got about halfway down the tunnel from where the light was, I immediately popped into a big giant sphere. It was about the size of our high school gymnasium. And I'm hovering in the sphere, in the center of the sphere, with the light next to me, and all around in every direction, top, bottom, right, left, were motion pictures of me, of my life and my lives, and all the things that went on through years and years of living. And every time I would focus on one, I would actually feel myself drawn into it. And I was reliving it then. But it was different than living it the first time, because not only did I know what I was doing, but I could feel the feelings of everyone I was interacting with. And this went on for what seemed like hours. And then all of a sudden I popped out back into the tunnel again. And now I'm being absorbed by the light. And the light says three things to me. The light says, Andy, don't be afraid. Andy, I love you. Andy, we love you. And when the light said, Andy, we love you to me, surrounding the light are countless billions of other lights. And I knew them all. And I said to myself, it's so good to be home, because I knew that I was home. That's where I belong.
Well, I'd like to speak to you about your feelings, your emotions. Did you have any type of emotional attachment to what was happening, or any kind of fear, or any kind of hesitation, or any kind of emotions whatsoever as you were going through this tunnel, and as you were, as they say, watching your life flash before you on all these screens?
It was interesting. It's an interesting question, because there was absolutely no fear or apprehension. From the moment I popped out of my body, going down the tunnel, into the sphere and then into the light again, there was a feeling of overwhelming, unconditional love. I felt so loved by everything and everyone that I've struggled for over 50 years now trying to find the right words in the English language to explain the level and depth of love that I was consumed with. And there are none. Okay?
Well, let's try to define it.
Sure.
I've had experiences several times in my life where they call it nirvana or bliss state. And it happens spontaneously. Once it happened when I was in Greece, and once I was in Germany. And I got off a trolley in Germany, and as soon as my foot hit the pavement, I was snapped into this vortex of this incredible love, this incredible unconditional love that was so profound, and it was very vast. There was no limitations to it. It was boundless, and it was unlike any kind of rapture or any kind of love that I've ever experienced. It was so without any type of feeling to it, or any kind of defining that it was this or that. It was cold or it was hot, or it was feeling good or it was feeling lukewarm. It was just so, it was beyond all of that. So it was like golden rays of energy that were pulsating through my whole being, and I was merged with it, and it was merged with me at the same time. So I've heard this being described, and I'm getting a sense that this experience is very similar to what you experienced. That there is no human words to describe it.
That's right. I can just come up with analogies. So listening to what you just said is very close to what I felt, because it really is an overwhelming feeling. And it's a feeling of being loved to the extent that there is no comparison. It's not like, oh, it was really a great feeling of love or a lesser feeling of love. There are no adjectives to describe the unconditional love that I felt, because it was all encompassing. My vibrations, my body vibrations, my soul vibrations, the Andy vibrations blended in with the unconditional love in the light, and we became one. So it was so obvious to me that I had gone back home where I came from, and I came from unconditional love. And now I can remember what it was like when I was in three-dimensional space here on Earth, not having unconditional love, but having love of various types. Comparing that to the love that I felt in the light would be like if I held up a match and I lit a match, and then right next to me was the sun, and I say, this is the best love I ever had on Earth compared to the whole sun. Well, there is no comparison. They're both heat. One is a little match, and one is the sun of the universe.
Could one say that you were merging back to this place of an organic sense of unconditional love?
Yeah.
You were returning back to what was innately there within you, but when you were, before you had the death experience, the near-death experience, you were not connected to it. You were not aware of it.
Correct. I was searching for it.
Ah.
I spent a lot of time in my teens. I was a very religious person, and I was looking for a specific religion to give me the answers that I was searching for as a young child even. I was always searching for oneness. I didn't believe in separation. I didn't believe in... I grew up during World War II, when there was a lot of anger and hatred around the world for all kinds of things. And I was 4 or 5 years old trying to talk to my parents, and I'd say, I don't feel this anger and hatred for these other people because we're all one. And they didn't understand what I was talking about and thought I was crazy. So they told me to quit talking that way, that wasn't right.
Was this before you were speaking that way before?
Yes, this was about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, okay.
This is before I even went to school as a young child, because I would have visions of the light, of living in a world where everyone loved and accepted each other. We weren't all the same. I'm not saying that everybody's the same. Even in the light, all the pieces of the light aren't the same. We're all different individuals, but we come together as one. Mm. And when you put us all together, put all the lights in the universe together, we're all one as one light. So I find it difficult in talking to people because I have to speak in contradictions. How can you be individual but still be all one? How can you and I be the same but different?
Right.
Well, you can when you're in the light. Right in here, you can't, because you're sitting there, I'm sitting here. We're two different people. We can talk about being one, but we're not really one here. But if we were both to let go right now at this moment and went into the light, we could be Victoria and Andy, but then combined to be one.
Well, the question that begs to be answered to ask is, how does one bring more light into their life? How does one live that? How does one stop that sense of separation from oneself and to others?
Okay. For me, since I have had the privilege of remembering being in the light and remembering what it was like there as compared to when I was told to come back, because I didn't want to come back. When the light said to me, Andy, you have to go back, I said, I don't think so. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back in that body. I don't want to go back to that earth. I don't want to go back to all that. I'm home and I want to stay here. And then the light said to me the second time, Andy, you're going back. And I said, no, I'm not going back.
Right.
And then they said the third time, you're going back. And by the time I heard the K in the word back, I was stuffed back into my body, which by this time was found at the bottom of the lake, dragged up onto the beach, and my friends were on top of me pushing the water out of my lungs. And now I'm coughing the water out of my lungs. I never lost consciousness in the entire episode. I never lost consciousness. I was aware of everything. And when I was aware that I was back in my body, the pain of being back in my body was horrendous. And I started to cry. And they thought I was crying because of the pain. But I was crying because I lost the light. And I was very angry at the light for a long time. Because here I was in the light. I was able to hold the universe in my hands. And now, for reasons I did not understand, I'm stuffed back into the crappy old body that I had before. And I got to go through all this stuff being back on earth again. That didn't make sense to me. I wanted to be back in the light.
So how long did you actually leave your body?
Probably somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes.
Okay.
Because it took them a while to find my body because it was stuck in the weeds at the bottom of the lake. Mm. So they finally jumped off of the platform, and my friends found my body and dragged it back.
Were you pronounced dead, or were you breathing?
No, I wasn't breathing.
You were not breathing?
I was not breathing when they got me out, and back in those days they didn't have mouth to mouth. It was turn over and push on your lungs with my head turned, and then when I popped back into my body, then I immediately started coughing out the water from my lungs. Mm.
So returning back to the question of how to work with the light.
Yes.
And this feeling of separateness to others that a lot of us would subscribe to.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
What do you do with this? How has this helped you in your life now to understand of this unconditional love and this light?
Because when I was in the light and I was observing all of my activities, all of my life activities, when I was in the light observing them, there was not judgment. There was no good or bad. There wasn't good or evil. There wasn't right or wrong. They were just things that were done, choices made, that were either choices that fostered love and kindness and joy, or choices that fostered fear and hatred. And when you're in the light and you're looking at that, it's different than looking at it now. In this world, when I look at some atrocities, I feel really bad about that. And it's a different type of feeling when you're in the light. It's observing and understanding that you would not do that again. That wasn't a thing that helped promote love and kindness. It promoted separation and fear. And it's like looking at your life and being able to walk away from it as you would if you saw a very intense movie. When I see movies, I really get into it to the point where sometimes I'm living the movie for those few minutes. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the movie's over and I walk out. Well, I know it's a movie, okay? All the emotions that I had while I was watching it were still there, but when the movie's over, I know that it's not real, it was a movie.
I'm getting a sense of what you experienced is perhaps an experiential. It was a feeling of being totally immersed in the experience, and this experience was of this unconditional bliss of love.
Yes.
Where here, we are not in the experiential, we are in, which henceforth makes the separation from us to others. So therefore, it is because we lose the moment. We're not in that moment. We're not in that moment of experiencing what is alive in ourselves and what's alive in the other person and others.
Yeah, because in the light, the thing that is so centered in me about the light is that it's not three-dimensional space. There isn't yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Right now I'm sitting here talking to Victoria. Yesterday I was at my home in Lincoln doing stuff. Tomorrow I'll be someplace else. In the light, I could be sitting talking to you, being at home yesterday, and going someplace tomorrow, all at the same point in time. And that's hard for people to understand because we live in a serial progression of time. In the light, everything happens in the eternal now. That's the best phrase I could come up with. The eternal now is everything that has happened, will happen, could happen, did happen, is all at the same point in time using English language of the point in time.
Yes. Andrew, you recently published your book, Remembering the Light.
Yes.
And you did it in a very interesting way, through the way of describing it through poetry.
Yes.
Instead of having it as a narrative, descriptive sense as others have done.
Correct.
And I would like to know, basically after what happened, when this near-death experience happened, did it change you immediately? Did you embrace it? And how many years after what effect did it have on you?
Okay. All right. This happened in 1955.
Yes.
In 1955, the phrase near-death experience didn't exist. Nobody even knew what that meant, what that was. So, first of all, here I am, a religious person who has experienced something that would be spiritual, if not religious. My personal problem was that none of my religious experiences were there. I was with the light. There was no judgment. There was no hell. There was no good and bad. There was no big tally in the sky. There was just the light absorbing me and consuming me with unconditional love, in which I was able to consume and absorb everyone else with unconditional love. So that I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand it. So I spent 25 years like a nomad, roaming the earth, trying to figure out I don't know what to do. I thought I was crazy. I thought if I ever told anybody about this, that I would be locked up in a room with rubber walls and be there for the rest of my life. So I never spoke of it for over 25 years.
I spoke to others with a similar experience or the same experience, and they have a sense of a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and a lot of that they cannot talk about it. This is completely taboo.
Yeah. See, I had a similar thing at that time while I was going through it, because mine was fear-based. I thought if I tell anybody about this and they find out, somebody's going to get a hold of me and say, you're crazy, you can't have, that doesn't make sense, it's against everything that you ever experienced before you had that near-death experience, okay? So we're going to put you away. So in order to do that, I said, well, I'm searching. I got to find out. I became a fanatic. I picked up every book I could read on anything that was spiritual to try to see if it made sense. I investigated all various religions. I went into the seminary. I was going to be a priest, but I left a year before my vows because that couldn't do it. I still didn't know what to do. So then I went and did just the opposite, and I joined the Marine Corps, and I went away for years in the Marine Corps searching for something that I didn't know what it was. Searching, always searching, never finding anything. Always distressed until some 20, 25 years later, I pick up this book called, by Raymond Moody, Life After Life. And I don't even know, I just picked it up on a business trip. I grabbed it for some reason, I know not why, put it in my suitcase. When I got home, I opened it up and I started reading it. And I read it, the whole book, by 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't do anything. As I'm reading it, I started to cry because I realized I'm not crazy. That what I experienced is real. It was real for hundreds of people identified in the book. It was real for me. So now finally, what does all this mean? So now I can go back and relive it knowing that I'm not crazy. I know it may sound silly to anybody listening to me, but when you believe that you're crazy, it has a really bad effect on your life. You're making choices that don't make sense because you don't know what you're doing.
At what point in time in your life did you come across this book and start the process of acceptance?
It was about, I was like in my 30s, mid-30s.
Okay.
So I read that, and then now I really started searching for things. Now I really started reading spiritual-oriented things. I'm looking for answers. What I didn't realize was I had the answers. They were in my remembrances of the light. And then a strange thing happened to me that I haven't heard happen to anybody else with a near-death experience, is that I started waking up in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, with these words and images spinning around in my head over and over again, over and over again. Separation, separation, separation. Oh, vibrations, vibrations, vibrations. Love, 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 joy. And I couldn't fall asleep. And so I would get up, go to the den, turn the light on, grab a pen and pencil. I was very quiet so I wouldn't wake anybody else up in the house. And for an hour, I would write down a poem. And after an hour, I'd finish it, go back to bed, wake up a few hours later, pick it up and say, that's not bad. I wonder who did that. Because I didn't really remember writing it. I knew that I wrote it, but if you were to ask me right now, Andy, write a poem, I couldn't do roses are red, violets are blue. I'm not a writer. So I finally realized that I wasn't writing the poem. The poems were an attempt from the light to allow me to find another way to explain what I felt in the light, to describe unconditional love through poetry, so that others could have some glimpse into the light that I had.
Well, this is a perfect moment for you to read one of your favorite poems from your book, Remembering the Light.
Okay. Yes, I just happen to have it here.
Yes, you do.
Remembering the Light. Okay, the poem is, let me see, okay. It comes from chapter 2, which is called Remembering Eternity. So let me just briefly read the introduction to it.
Yes.
It's called prosody because every one of my poems has a prose introduction to it, so that you just don't jump into the poetry. You have some idea of what it's about. So this says, remembering eternity. In the light, everything was strange, but at the same time, it was recognizable. I began to remember the exact details of everything as it burst into my awareness. I was conscious of the fact that nothing I was experiencing was totally new, even though I had never experienced it before. All the experiences brought back familiar memories. It was like a homecoming after being gone a very long time. So the poem that I wrote is called Being in the Light, a Love Experience. And it goes like this. Being in the light is experiencing love without end, engulfed in warmth and kindness, cherished by an everlasting friend. Being in the light is releasing all sadness and pain. Instantly, it's no longer important. Peace is the overriding gain. Being in the light is passing from life through death. Dying quickly or in agonizing pain, you're absorbed by the light from light's gentle breath. Being in the light is floating in a tunnel of darkness, seeing the bright light of creation ahead, embraced by the light's love ever joyous. Being in the light is seeing life as simple choices, judged as neither good nor bad, acknowledged by heavenly voices. Being in the light is liberating for the timid and the coy. Discords of recent lifetimes are replaced with supernatural joy. Being in the light is realizing that life is worthy, being one with the universe, illuminated in celestial ecstasy. Being in the light is not limited by dimensions 3, being everywhere at the speed of thought, mind, body, and soul completely free. Being in the light is floating in the center of eternity, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, interwoven in perfection and clarity. Being in the light is transcending all space and time, being a piece of the infinite light, immersed unconditionally in a cosmos sublime. Thank you.
Very, very beautiful. Thank you.
So that came to me.
Very beautiful and very profound.
I really, when I read that for the first time after I wrote it, it took me back into the light. As I was reading it right now, just a couple of seconds ago, as I'm reading it, I'm back in the light. I have the sensation and the feeling of being in the light. It's awesome. I've read this book since it's been published maybe 1,000 times. Every time I read it, it's as if I'm reading it for the first time.
It becomes the experience
I
in the moment.
never tire of it. It is always new and always fresh.
As you were reading the poem, I had a sense that there was a definite moving forward all the time, there was a movement of never stagnation, never going back, never going side, never standing still. It seemed to be that the poem was speaking about life always in perpetual movement and motion from that experience that we're talking about.
Yes.
And as soon as it ceases up, then that's where the separation happens, the negativity happens. Life is a complete movement all the time, a flow. There's no moment in time that it absolutely stands still and it ceases to be in that way of hesitation.
There's what you said. There's something that I remember very, very vividly about the light, and that is vibrations. Vibrations, vibrations, vibrations. I have a short poem in here on vibrations. Could I read it? Because it flows right in what you said. That life never stops, never slows down. It's always moving. So let me see if I can get this for you. Okay, here it is, Vibrations. It's a short poem, but it says a lot. Vibrations abide in the heart and soul of all. Energy lives in everything, both large and small. Vibrating strings create existence from none, awakened and alive until their frequency is gone. Harmony fuses all experiences into lifetimes, atoms to galaxies, the simple to the sublime. Lower frequency create linear time and mass. Higher frequencies release the now from the future and the past. Frequencies of separation, fear, and hatred are low, stagnating in still, lifeless, dark pools of ego. The higher the oscillations, the brighter the light, loving, caring, and oneness, illuminating sights. Unconditional love vibrates throughout your soul. Its frequency heals, making shattered lives whole. Unconditional acceptance resonates equally as high, releasing the shackles of fear to soar through the sky. Holographic universes pulsate in parallel realms. Comprehension through earthly minds overwhelms. Infinite pieces of light shine like billions of suns, vibrating as individuals, yet fusing into one. That's my vibration. And I every day I'm very cognizant of vibrations. The first time that I talked to you on the phone, I could feel your vibrations. The first time I saw you, I could feel the connection. All day long as I meet people and go through my life, I'm constantly aware of the vibrations that come off, and the higher the vibration, the more towards love and joy. The lower the vibrations, the more towards ego and separation.
Absolutely.
So I always try to keep myself vibrating high, because I can choose joy. I can choose to be happy. I can choose whatever state I want, regardless of the circumstances. Because it became obvious to me there's a distinction in my life between joy and happiness. Happiness, to me, comes from the outside. If I win the lotto, man, I'm a happy guy, okay? You couldn't be happier than winning the lotto, so I got $100 million. I'm happy. Am I joyful? Not necessarily, but I'm happy. But joyfulness means, joyfulness is a choice to love, a choice to go from the outside to the outside from the inside, and that choice is joyfulness. And I choose to be joyful, because I have control over joyful. I can't control happiness. I accept it if I have it. If I don't, I don't. But I'm always joyful because I'm the one who chooses to be joy. And I use my daily experiences to be joyful. And I find that something as simple as being pleasant to a waitress at a restaurant who's got a hard life to live, doing her thing, and I go out of my way to make that person feel good about her position and her serving. I feel really good at the end of a meal because I've tried to make that person who I've come in contact with, probably once and never again, feel good about herself and feel good about the process of what she's doing. That brings me joy.
Because in the process of energy and unconditional love, you're contributing. You're not extracting or detracting or subtracting from the experience. You're contributing to it. I'd like to speak about energy. As you were reading the poem, I've had several experiences of this bliss energy, and I felt a vortex of energy, and I'm very, very sensitive. I was born with a way to be able to be very, very akin to knowing and feeling energy all my life. So this vortex of energy, I'm always aware of it around me, So when you're describing this vibration, I actually can see it. So one rhythm is going one way at a certain speed, the next is going another way, and it goes completely high above me and very much below me and all around me. And I see that with everybody has that. It's a vortex of energy. And when you are tapped and not into that energy and you're disconnected from it, it's basically vibrates and it basically brings you to this low vibrational energy.
Yes.
So when you are aware of it and allowing it and connect it to your higher self, then everything is completely in balance. Mm-hmm. And it's as easy as that.
Yeah.
There's an alignment of effortlessness to it.
You know, I woke up one night with this thought running through me of saying, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And I got up and I wrote a poem about who I am. Okay? And I found out that who I am is the silent space existing between my thoughts. That's the opening line of the poem. And I thought about that for a long time. Who am I really? Andy Petro, who are you? And when I find that spot, that space in between my thoughts, I go there. And there's where the energy is. And there's where the unconditional love is. And there is where my connection to the light is. Mm. So it doesn't, I'm doing it right now as I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you and I understand what's going on, but I'm able to slip into that silent space between my thoughts where the vibrational energy keeps reinforcing me and reinvigorates me.
For others who are not familiar with doing this practice, this way of living, this way of beingness, what would you suggest to them? How do they become aware of this sacred silence that we're speaking about?
Yeah. For me, it's been a journey. It isn't something that I woke up one morning and says, aha, look at this, I got the answer. It's, for me, it's my answer. But it took years of meditation, years of looking for the silence, years of just unconditional loving, of unconditional doing, of being nice to this person without any regard of being nice back or having any expectation. Doing that starts to foster and start increasing my internal vibrations.
So it's aligning yourself with your basic goodness.
Yes.
Nothing more complicated than that others can do right away.
Yes.
They're basically, we have nasty thoughts, we have good thoughts, we have bad thoughts. Where do we want to put our attention?
Right.
What do we want our life to be? We have decisions to make all the time about this.
Yes.
Nothing is random, nothing is unconscious.
Nothing's uncontrollable. I mean, it could be uncontrollable. I could be walking out of the studio today and get hit by a car. I can't control that, but I can control what I think about. I can control the fact that I choose to be aware of what I'm doing, aware of my thoughts. And when I find myself starting to think about things that lend themselves towards fear and separation, I just choose not to do that. It's not good or bad, it's just a choice that doesn't do anything for me.
So you're training the mind, basically.
Yes.
And over the period of time, the more you keep training your mind, the more that you will become like that.
Yeah, I've been doing this consciously, focusing on awareness, being aware of what am I thinking, what am I doing. And I'm never from the judgmental side. When I was very religious and everything was black or white and judgmental, that didn't do anything for me. So therefore that didn't work for me. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. If it works for somebody else, that's fine. It didn't work for me. What works for me is the ability on my own, without any input from anybody else, I know what's right and what's not. I know what's loving and what isn't. I know what to say to you to help you feel good about yourself without expecting anything back in return. And the more often I do it, the less I expect back in return. With low expectations or no expectations, it's freeing. It's like I just lost 100 pounds. It's like I'm starting to float now because I'm able to do things without expecting anything in return. And that starts to give me feelings of being back into the light with unconditional love, because unconditional love never expects anything back.
Absolutely.
Unconditional love is a one-way street, because I found out that unconditional love comes from a magic bucket that's filled with love that never empties. Yeah, I'm giving too much love. Is it? No. Look, I look at it, it's full again. Take out some more love. No, it's full again. It's a little game I used to play with myself when I was young, because I thought I knew that I would never run out of love, because love comes from a magic bucket that never empties. Therefore, I can never love. There's no such thing as loving too much.
Right. Well, let's define this magic bucket. It is about the more unconditional love you're giving, the more that you're receiving back in the most effortless way.
Yes.
They say that it's the giver. It's not the receiver. I mean, it's in the art of giving the love that you get. You give yourself so much. And that freedom that you're talking about, that is where the answers are. That's where all the release of all the negativity and all the grasping and all of the lower vibrational energies lie once you do that.
I did another exercise too a number of years ago. I found this really very freeing. I found that from time to time I would think about someone in my past who at the time I judged as that person did me wrong, someone who hurt me, someone who cost me a lot of money, someone who in my evaluation wasn't a very nice person and wasn't, I thought he was a friend, but that friend turned his back on me, and I suffered from it. So one morning I got up thinking about this one person, and all of a sudden something hit. I said, stop. There was a voice inside me that said, Andy, why are you thinking about all the negative things that person did and how angry you are? Why don't you just let go? Why don't you just release it? Why don't you just unconditionally love him? I'm not saying he's going to be my very best friend. I'm going to call him up tomorrow. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about unconditionally loving him in myself, so that when I think of him again, there is no negative energy connected to it. You see? When I think of him again, I think of him in an unconditional loving way, without any expectations. And therefore, what was causing negative energy for me now is producing positive energy, because I'm able to love him unconditionally. So then I said, what a great idea. So I sat down that morning and mentally went through all the people that I had anything against for what I thought they did or did not do to me. And I accepted them for what they were. If there was anything to forgive, I forgave everything. And I just decided that from now on, I will not harbor any angst or hatred or retribution of anybody who did anything to me. I let it go. And it's freeing.
Absolutely.
It is truly, truly freeing.
I have an understanding of that from a perspective that there is a difference between the person and the actual experience. So I like to see and really look at that and really own that and really feel that from that way. It's the action, the experience of what they did is one thing, but the actual person is another story. So I give as much love and compassion to that person, and I look at the action of what happened. And I don't see it as negative or positive. It was just an action. It was not good or bad. There's no favoritism to it. So when I do this, separation of knowing the experience and the person, everything becomes very effortless then.
Yes.
And I can able to say, okay, this experience was this experience. I experienced it. It was an experiential energy, and let it be. And I hold no negativity to that person, because that person perhaps needed that experience. I perhaps needed that experience for my further growth. So there's no time and place where I say, well, that is bad, this is good. That's henceforth where the separation is.
That's the basis for separation.
Yes.
One of the
Yeah.
So my accepting of this person, unconditionally loving this person, the person, never judging or condoning the action. The action is just an action. It's in the light. They are neither good nor bad. They are just actions that cause either, the result of which is a love and growing and positive vibrations, or a fear negative vibration. Okay? But they just are. There's no judgment to be made on them. They just are, and let them go, and I pour my unconditional love to the person that was connected to it. So you're absolutely right. It would help anyone who's listening to what we're saying to separate the person from the act. The act is the act. The person is a piece of you. We are all one. All our personhoods come from the same source of light. So we're all one.
We're all this raw organic material that's based on a higher vibrational energy of pure awareness and pure love. And when we start to say that that action is us, that's where everything becomes soiled and not completely in truth.
And if you look at the world today, where we're sitting at a great level of separation, okay, it's all because people are confusing the person with the act. And therefore we're angry at people when we should be loving those people, but of course never loving the act, understanding that the act is something that is not causing love. So we'll do what we can to stop the act without hating the people, because the people are we're all one. That's the whole point. If we're all one, then by my hurting you, I'm really hurting myself.
Absolutely.
Killing you is just another form of mutual suicide, because you and I are one. Us and everyone in the world are all connected. We're all pieces of the same light. So why do we spend all this time killing each other and not enjoying each other? Is just the phenomenon of where we are. But I think it's changing. If we were talking, first of all, I don't know that we could have had this conversation 50 years ago, because the mindset 50 years ago was much different than the mindset is today. So I enjoy the whole process of living my life so that I can let go of those things that don't serve any purpose for me. They don't help me. They don't bring me closer to unconditional love. Just let them go and focus my attention on things that will give me higher vibrations. And I like it.
Was there a point in time, Andre, that you were not this person of the higher vibrational energy, that you were more inundated with being lost inside yourself, and you were what I was basically going around today in a common way of acting and being?
Oh yeah.
And if can you please describe that experience?
That was where
the difference between today and that period of time.
That period, if I went back 25 years or so, because it's been about a 25-year process for me to get where I am today.
Okay.
But if I go back to 25, 30 years ago, I would take everything very personal. Me personal. When somebody did something to me, I was assuming they were doing something very personal to me. I would get very angry and very upset, and would just spend so much time and energy rethinking the event, the negative event over and over and over again. I was like almost driving myself crazy.
And then you had to defend yourself, and
yes, and then I would react,
a lot of,
and I would react in a negative way, and that person then would take that and come back. It was mutual destruction, because what started out as a friendship ended up being we would never talk to each other anymore, because we were focusing on the differences. We were making the separation gap wider and wider by tagging the person to the event rather than making that separation. Because what you said just a few minutes ago, that's key to being able to live a joyful life, to understand the difference between the actions and the person. Love the person, work with the action.
And
They're
taking
not
it
the same.
personal is not going to allow that to happen.
That's right. And never allow that to happen. And the other thing too that I spent a lot of energy on, I was always living for the future. I remember, as soon as I finish and I get my undergraduate degree, then I'm going to be happy. Well, I got it. I looked around. I wasn't that happy. No, I have to get my master's degree. So when no. If I get that promotion, so then I'm now vice president. Yep, I got that. I look around. I'm still not happy. Well, maybe I need to be. You see, I've spent years on that treadmill, like a little hamster, running his little heart out, always looking for the true happiness when the next thing occurs. And then I wake up one morning and say, well, that's dumb. That's pretty silly. Happiness is in the present moment. Why don't you enjoy what you're doing right now? This very moment.
Even if you don't like it, even if it's not the circumstances
That's right.
that you ideally would want,
That's right.
you could still enjoy that moment. Let's even leave the word enjoy alone. Let's say that you can just experience it and own it.
Yes.
So there's no favoriting it or liking it or not liking it. It's just being with it and owning it and feeling it.
Yeah, and that's when I realized that excuse me, the present moment is now. What I call the moment of now. So I live the moment of now, and the next moment of now, and the next moment of now, and it's really revamped my life. It has given me a peace, and causes me to smile a lot. I smile a lot all day long, all the time, because I understand what life is about for me. And I understand its choices. And I understand that I can make my choices. And regardless of the outcome is irrelevant. Whatever the outcome is the outcome. But what about the journey? I'm enjoying the journey. I love being me. I even love being old. When I was young, I thought being old was really bad, because all the old people that I knew when I was younger weren't very nice, and it wasn't very nice to be around.
Andrew, we have a very few final moments.
Sure.
I'd like to know what is very important that you would like to share with others, if you were to give them advice. And obviously you've spoke to many, many people throughout your tours and your lectures you do, and a lot of questions come up. What constant questions always come up, and what would you like to share with others? And it's been an absolute pleasure and absolute delight to meet you and speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess if I had just a minute or two to say what I thought was really the essence of me, because that's all I can speak of, what works for me. That is, I spend energy unconditionally loving without expectation. That brings a smile to my face. I spend time and energy trying to help people in any way I can without any expectations. And I enjoy being alive. And I know that we are all going to be together again in the light, because there's no place else to go. That's the only place we can go.
Resistance is futile.
That's right.
Lovely. Well, Thank you. Thank you very much. It was absolutely a delight to meet you.
I enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the art of conscious living, do take care of yourselves and take care of others. Thank you.